Hey guys, Dov here, back with another unit to highlight. Today with the Dwarfs, of course, talking about a unit that's very near and dear to my heart, a unit that has been slandered on some other channels. A lot of people have said it might be one of the worst units in the game, and I strongly disagree with that, even before it got suppression on its main gun here, which it now has to debuff speed, 1100 missile damage, a lot of that being armor piercing, 8 shots per volley with some nice explosive armor piercing and regular armor piercing damage. Means that if you can connect with all of those scatter shots, it will delete something like a single model chariot in a very short amount of time. And of course, single model chariots are the bane of the dwarf's existence here against Norsca, Shadow of Nagarath. I will say, we had a practice session with Red Salamander, which, by the way, if any of you guys are newer players, head on over to the Noob Hammer Discord if you want to join those organized practices. This was after the fact. We were just playing some extra practice games. He actually asked me to practice Norsca against some other factions, so credit to him for being brave and asking a vet like me to help. Of course, I'm more than happy to. And here today, yeah, he's got his Norsca, Wulfric leading the way with Shaman Sorcerer Chariot, bunch of Marauders, got some Ice Trolls out to the flank, some Marauder Chariots, Marauder Hunters with throwing axes. For myself, the Gyrobomber, we've got Thorgrim Grudgebearer up on his toilet seat, the High King's Throne, Quarrelers, some Dwarf Warriors, Peak Gate Guard in the center, and some blasting charges. Right off the bat, nice flank attack here, preventing these miners from using their blasting charges, and tries to peel away here, but one of these units is going to get somewhat caught up by these Slayers. But all the meanwhile, check out what's happening to Wulfric. I mean, he's also, you know, I'm not as close as I should be here to really maximize on the scatter shot. Some of them are going to miss. Only do the explosive damage maybe by hitting the ground next to him, and like now as he pulls into this blob here, these Ice Trolls will maybe block some of the shots as well, as will some of the Marauders, but even still, I'm going to be able to consistently work on him. Meanwhile, over on this flank, some Ice Wolves come in to disrupt the Quarreler line. Thankfully, Ice Wolves do actually count as large, and the Slayers here are able to counter. Most Hound units actually do not count as large. You can see there's a couple more Norscan Warhounds waiting here for some routing units. They count as infantry, right? So they're not going to get hit quite as hard against the Slayers, but already balance of power is starting to tip a little bit, and a big part of that is Wulfric the Wanderer getting shredded by the Bomber here. And yeah, Thorgrim eating a bunch of throwing axes here. I've also been using Thorgrim plus the Peak Gate Guard, tossing around that Oath of Vengeance to help debuff enemy units. Melee defense plus the Peak Gate Guard is a pretty nasty combo. But the main thing here, obviously, is this Gyrobomber and that Metal Sorcerer Chariot as well. I think he might have taken some of the overshots from the Gyrobomber. It's already got an XP chevron, almost exclusively from shooting single model chariots, right? And, I mean, you combine the fact that you can take this now alongside the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, or the Dragonback Slayers, of course, also have a slow component to their bound melee attack here. It can be pretty good. Norsca's not out of this yet, though. They've still got some Trolls here fighting. These Trolls, I think I'm going to be able to chase off the Dragonback Slayers, but another push coming forward here. The Quarrelers have been disrupted. One of the Chaos Chariots is still online, one of these Marauder Chariots. The other one back here with one unit model left, they're the ones who got the Oath of Vengeance plus Peak Gate Guard treatment. But the Marauder Champs with great weapons, not a unit that I'm much of a fan of, and you're going to see how much of a not of a fan I am. Yes, terrible unit, so might as well just bomb them out. No, honestly though, I'm really not a fan of Marauder Champs at all. I think even in this matchup, you're better off to bring the Shielded Champions, but here, I'm going to go ahead and unleash the bombs. Since Marauder Champions only have 80 armor, that was actually pretty cost-effective in and of itself. Got up to a second chevron there, and that is going to be the end of the Norscan forces. Don't worry, I've got another replay to show you. And the shortness of this game's no indictment against Shadow of Nagarath as a player, obviously. He's trying to learn, so I gave him some kind of build advice here, sort of stuff I was talking about throughout the battle, and we were actually in chat. He was mentioning that he typically brings a Frostworm in this matchup, and while the Frostworm is absolutely a meme unit in a lot of respects, I can see, and we both kind of agreed, it would have been obviously really nice for him to have here. The Chilling Aura plus the Frostbite means the Gyrobomber would not be able to get away from that thing, and you know, I'd have to keep it positioned in such a way that the Quarrelers can try and shoot the the Frostworm, and if the Frostworm, you know, if he disrupts, like with these chariots and the hounds and things, then the Frostworm is free to go, and we'll be able to take out this Gyrobomber. It is a very squishy unit, you know, quite risky to take, and not only does Norsca have the Frostworm, but of course Manticores are also great in pretty much every matchup. 800 points for some cheap, fast terror with good melee attacks, and of course flying, they can zone out gyros. Gyros are a little bit faster, and especially with the suppression of the Gyrobomber, if you keep that going, you can kind of stay out in front a little bit, kind of move forward, turn back, shoot, move forward, turn back, shoot, especially stacking with the Rune of Wrath and Ruin. But let's go ahead and get to the next replay without further ado. Alright, back again. This time we're up against the High Elves. This is Rider of Rohan, who's a patron of mine. We're actually doing our monthly patron practice session, where I play some battles with him, kind of help him with army selection, micro, you know, whatever. It's just a private training session, basically. And even other cases, I've like watched replays with him, and other patrons tried to, you know, kind of maybe see what went wrong in a specific replay or what went right, or so on. Anyway, to the builds here, I've got a similar setup: Peak Gate Guard, some Chaff Infantry, I say Chaff, Dwarf Warriors and Blasting Charges in the front line here. I've got 3 Thunderers, the Peak Gate Guard once again. This time I've got a Runesmith for additional speed debuffing, and the Dragonback Slayers, along with a single Bolt Thrower. For Rider of Rohan here, he's got a whole bunch of War Lions, supported by Imric, who's actually a pretty interesting choice here, and I am quite scared of with Thorgrim, because Imric is an elite anti-large armor-piercing combatant, and Thorgrim definitely counts as large on his throne. We've got a Life Mage on a chariot, and also a Light Mage on a chariot, and here you can see the archers firing in, rangers, white lions as well in this front line. They're going to do some really nice damage to the miners initially, but because the meleeing, he's kind of, in chat he mentioned after he was a little bit scared of the miners with blasting charges here, but because he kind of hangs back, that then allows me to get a decent engagement. That being said, I say decent engagement. This is actually probably not super cost effective for me, considering the Dragonback Slayers got wrecked, absolutely wrecked by those war lions there, even with the Gyrobomber firing in, probably doing a little bit of friendly fire as well, but they're also going to overrun and get on this artillery crew and shut down that. So was that actually worth it at the end of the day? It's hard to say. We were able to pick off the Light Mage on the chariot pretty quickly, turning and firing with the guns, but yeah, as I mentioned, infantry hanging back is a little bit of a problem, because then I can kind of reallocate forces to deal with these lions, but the main focus is on the Gyrobomber here, and just firing into this blob. Could also target Imric directly as well, or either of these chariots, especially the Life Mage chariot. It's going to be pretty important for me to take out. But just chewing away the unit models of these War Lions is also a pretty good play. They're going to get a quick hit and run charge in the Peak Gate Guard, do some damage there, and then pull out before I can get that Oath of Vengeance really going. Rahagra's Pride was the recipient of that, but of course with that fast speed, they'll be able to get out and away. Rangers have come slightly forward here, and since the miners with blasting charges are basically done, the Rangers could come in and they'll beat the Dwarf Warriors. They'll lose to Longbeards, but they will beat Dwarf Warriors pretty convincingly. But all the while, you know, hitting and running, even with the healing of the Life Mage, these War Lions are still just taking so much burst damage, they really can't heal their models and sustain. They all kind of grouped up now, once more going to go for a flank attack here. So even though initially that engagement was not great for me, losing out a few units there, the fact that the Gyrobomber is able to just keep firing the whole time, and again, use all of its ammunition, very, very key. That being said, balance of power is still pretty close. I mean, there's all of this High Elf infantry I still have to deal with. The Life Mage is here, also with Imric, both quite healthy still, so there's still a pretty good chance, and a nice Shield of Thorns here for some extra physical resistance, take a little bit less damage. That being said, the Peak Gate Guard, as a Regiment of Renown, do magic damage, So they don't care too much about Shield of Thorns. Plus, as with the Marauder Champions, I mean, the War Lions are a high-value unit with relatively low armor, which means that bombing run is going to do a lot of damage there. As the last of the bombs are jettisoned, that will put a little bit more of a dent in the balance power. You can see it turns slightly with that bombing run there. And likewise, the Life Mage, also the recipient of Scattergun, doing a bunch of damage. Finally, the main melee engagement gets underway. You can see the White Lions coming forward. They're going to, again, match up quite well with these Dwarf Warriors. Same thing with the Rangers on the Dwarf Warriors. Longbeards, though, will do much better. I don't know. I think that it's probably a little bit RNG dependent, but I want to say that the Longbeards and Rangers might trade like 60-40 in favor of the Longbeards. Not 100% sure on that, but over here, the supporting fire of these archers hopefully will let these White Lions beat those Longbeards, although Longbeards is just a very cost-effective defensive unit in general. But the Lions still fighting. Again, another Dragon Horn here at this point being cast map-wide to help all of these units with their melee attack. The White Lions here doing quite well. You can see, again, with that, these Rangers actually pretty decisively beating Dwarf Warriors for the cost. But the fact that the Thunderers have this nice high ground position to fire their guns down into the flanks and, you know, over the heads of their fellow Dawi into the White Lions, definitely a problem. Thorgrim also supporting this engagement. You can see Imrik's coming over, like, wanting to get his paws on Thorgrim, so we'll see how it goes. As it is right now, though, with a lot of the Lions being gone, the balance power is going to tick in my favor. Also, this Gyrobomber, again, 2 chevrons. It's very consistent. Used up all of its ammo. In just a second, I'm going to give it an attack order to go actually chase that Life Mage off. If you are using the Gyro in melee, I mean, it has 88 weapon strength, but 5 melee defense, 42 attack with 30 charge, so it's not like it's really meant for melee at all, but you can, I guess, if it's out of ammo. We'll kind of keep it in the background there as this main fight keeps up. Those Rangers here against the Longbeards, you can see they actually did trade pretty well, but the melee defense does start to tell in that longer engagement. I've also kind of been firing in, charging in with various other units. Archers getting pushed back by some Dwarf Warriors overrunning in the front line, and at this point, Thorgrim is getting hit pretty hard by Imrik, which is not great for me. I don't actually have the High King buff, so if Thorgrim goes down below half HP, I don't gain any benefit from that. But I can kind of pull him through this thick Dwarfen infantry, continue to play off of the guns and the Peak Gate Guard here as much as possible. And yeah, the Gyro did just what I said it would. Now, shortly, hopefully, we'll be coming back. It's pretty much done all it needs to, though, at this point. It's just down to the rest of the Dwarf units. These Thunderers get a nice kind of flanking fire on the White Lion Infantry here. The Lion Infantry has missile resistance, which helps somewhat, but concentrated fire like this is going to be a little bit too much. Yes, something, angry dwarf. And at this point, the fact that I can't really fight Imrik with Thorgrim directly is fine. I've got these Peak Gate Guard here to act as a bodyguard for Thorgrim, plus the Runesmith as well, with his hammer out, just full on, ready to rumble. Dragonhorn being used once more. Oath of Vengeance on Imrik, you can see still 48 melee defense, even with that Oath of Vengeance. Peak Gate Guard, again, magic damage versus the physical resistance of the Rangers, means they'll get cleaned up in a big hurry. The giant weapon damage, too, 55 weapon damage for Peak Gate Guard is kind of insane. Plus, they're getting the +9 melee attack aura of Thorgrim. I have to say, I haven't played Dwarfs a ton over the years. I've been playing a few more battles than I would normally recently. And Thorgrim is probably my favorite Dwarf Lord right now because of his mass and his buffs. The debuff as well, that Oath of Vengeance, along with the Peak Gate Guard. Huge fan of that combination. But yeah, the Gyrobomber, basically, this is a PSA for all of you guys who are going to be playing Dwarfs out there. Always bring something that can deal with the Gyrobomber. Otherwise, your single model chariots are going to explode and get just absolutely dumped on. So, good game to Rider of Rohan, though. Again, the coaching that I gave him there was just move up your main line and engage while you're overloading the flanks with those lions. Maybe could have got some more breaks, and you know, the miners with blasting charges are a little bit of a danger, but they're not that big of a danger. And instead, I would say you could try and move up your archers to zone out the Gyrobomber, because they actually have pretty good range, right? They could maybe move up on that left flank, kind of by that rock, and fire at the Gyrobomber, since it's a pretty big threat. And that's, with this build, with Rider Rohan that he brought here, that's really the only way to get at the Gyrobomber, is to try and shoot it with the archers, which they definitely can. I mean, high volume of fire with the low HP of the Gyrobomber means that it will take damage from a lot of things, even quote-unquote non-armor piercing damage will be pretty effective, just given the fact that I've said in the past that the Ancient Salamander has the lowest HP of any single model. I guess maybe not if you also include like Grail Relics in there. Maybe actually Grail Relics have more. Okay, so Grail Relic has more HP than the Gyrobomber. That's interesting. Corpse Carts for sure do, right? I mean, that's just a given, especially because of regeneration. The Ancient Salamander is another single model with super low HP, right? And I believe it is even higher than the Gyrobomber. So can we say definitively that the Gyrobomber, outside of Lords and Heroes, even including Lords and Heroes, probably one of the lowest HP models in the game? Single models in the game? There we go. Sally. Yeah, Sally's got over 3,000 HP, so yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say the Gyrobomber, just because of that low HP factor, even though it doesn't have 100 armor, the non-AP fire of the high elf bows will still be effective enough, especially with 3 archers. That is definitely good enough volume. And granted, archers aren't as good at shooting flying units as gunpowder units are, but it's still good enough. 3 AP per shot with 68 unit models times 3 units is a lot of damage. You could probably do this thing in just a few volleys if you can get solid contact. But yeah, that's it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.